Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now today I've got a whole new bunch of Gigapans for you to check out from Sol 96 from the Perseverance rover. This is the main page here, and I've got Sol 96 up here. What you have to do is type in 96 here and then come down to here and either select mast right or mast left. This is on mast right at the moment. There's 60 of these images. A lot of these aren't much good, these ones here, the black and white ones and stuff. There's loads of these colour ones and they're really good. They're nice and bright, you can see everything pretty clearly. No real signs of obfuscation here going on. These look really good. These are nice and bright and lots of detail, and the shadows are a bit bleached out in some of them, depending on what part of the image. Some of the stuff over to the left here is much brighter, and the shadows aren't very dark, so you may want to darken these things up yourself and add a bit of contrast, but that's all you've got to do really. I've got this one here. This is mast left, Percy Sol 96 ML, that's mast left. And I've got the mast right one here. And first of all, I'm going to show you this. Now this is a statue. I've called this the Mars Picasso for obvious reasons, because when you look at it, it looks like a Picasso sculpture. There's a long nose, mouth, two eyes, and the head coming around in a weird sort of curve here, right? And you can compare it with this one. Now, these have both had exactly the same amount of colour correction on them, but because the raw images are slightly different, left and right, the left ones are kind of more yellowy, and they don't quite match up. The raw images left and right don't. So when you enhance them, they also look different in colour, like this. So this one's more brown, and this one's more blue. But they've had exactly the same amount of colour correction, which isn't very much. So there we are. I've shown that before. There is a discrepancy between the left and the right eyes on the mast cam, but it's not really a problem. In fact, it can be an advantage when you have a slight difference, because you can pick out different things. Okay, so there it is. You can see it in this one as well. And it shows up fairly well in the raw image as well. There it is. And I'm going to show you the close-up of that. Here's the raw clip, which is actually a kind of greeny, browny colour, which is really odd. But like I said, this is on the left side of the Gigapan. If I show the overall Gigapan here, this one is very pale over this side, because it's kind of sun bleached. Whereas on the right hand side it's actually much more natural looking here, because the shadows are more prominent and you can see the shapes much better. That's completely normal, because obviously this set of images, which is really large, was taken from a single standpoint, and then the camera moved round and took the picture of the whole horizon, pretty much. So this is a kind of 360 we're looking at here, going right round the crater, looking at all the different parts. This is looking west here. You've got the large bunker-shaped structure here. This is due west, just right of that, okay? So then we're looking northwest here, and then north here. This is north. We've got that thing I just showed you down here. I'm just going to show you that briefly, and I'm going to show you a load of structures that I've spotted in the background as well, which are really cool. There's a whole bunch of structures in the distance. Now, they're not very clear, some of them, because they're a long way off, but some of them are actually quite big, and you can make out what they are. So here's the Picasso. I'm just going to highlight some of this for you. It's pretty obvious what it is, but I'm going to do that anyway, because some of the people don't always see these things the same way, so that's cool. There's the head coming up. Side of the face, chin, neck, shoulder there, right? Nose, pretty obvious if you ask me. So eye there, another eye here, a mouth, and a chin, and the eyebrow coming around there, another one there. Okay? This is really, really weird. The style of it's probably quite eroded. It may be very, very old indeed, so it may have been a bit more detailed and angular than this initially, and it's all kind of rounded off through wind erosion, who knows. But it may have been buried for thousands of years, we don't know. But basically it looks very similar to some of the sculptures I've seen in various parts of the world, including Spain, and has a very Picasso-esque kind of look to it. When you look at the actual eye detail here, you've got one sticking out there, and this one here, and the sort of long nose and the sort of rather strange sculptural, slightly abstract kind of shape to it is very reminiscent of a sort of Picasso kind of style, modern art style from the last century. And that's what it reminded me of straight away. You can see sculptures like this in all the museums in the world, where they're either Picassos and paintings. Whether they're Picassos or not, some of them are, but a lot of people copied his style. And this is very reminiscent of one of his sculptures or pictures that he did back in the 1930s, 20s and 30s. So there we are. Another sculpture, but this one is a rather interesting one, stylistically. And the shape of it's really cool. It kind of comes right round like that and sticks out like that. It's quite odd. It seems to be joined to all this here. So I'm guessing this was a structure here and that this was part of it, either on top or in front of. Okay, it's not very clear. This is a long way off. What we're looking at here are things that are probably about not half a mile, but about a quarter of a mile away. Hundreds of meters away, these things are. And you can actually see the drone over here as well. I've marked it. It's very small, but it's there. Ingenuity, it's there. Just about make it out. So this is a long way off, okay? This is just the top part of the images. There's also, there's a couple of things I've shown here before, like this thing here, and obviously the bunker-shaped structure, but the really interesting stuff is in the background up here. And some of these things are really old and don't make any logical sense unless they are artificial. Like this thing. We've got this weird kind of almost like a roof part sticking out of the sand here. If you look carefully, you can see this white, not white, but light coloured ridge or mark along this ridge line that goes right along here, like this, which is very old, and it's almost dead straight. It goes down a bit there. And then we have this rather strange straight structure at the top, and then a weird angular part to it. Now, I don't see how this could be explained away as a completely natural structure. This looks like a building that's buried, and this looks like part of the roof. That's what it looks like to me. I've got clips of all these things. What I'll do with some of this, I'll put clips in after I show you each part, rather than wait to the end. What I'll do, I'll show you each thing and then put a couple of clips in, and I'll put some more clips in at the end as well, because I've done enhanced clips of all these things. This looks like a wall here as well, and that kind of leads up to this thing here. Now, these have been visible in these images for months now, but this is a nice view of it because it's nice and clear, and it's quite a long way zoomed in, so we're seeing this stuff in better detail than we've seen perhaps before. There's a bunch of things up on the mountain side here that look a bit like structures, but the main ones were over here. There's this one here. Now, I'm calling this a structure, right? Now, it's not very clear. It's miles away. It's probably about 2 or 3 miles away, a couple of miles away, I would think, on this ridge at the back. And you can see what looks like a platform here going straight across with a structure, rectangular, dilapidated structure right on top of it, like a building, like a house or a small fortress or something like that. This is large. This is miles away, so this is really large. It's just a long way away. So I'm guessing this is pretty big. And you can see it here. You've got this platform that goes right across, completely flat there. And then we've got a vague outline of a building on top of it that's there with parts to it. And I've got enhancements of all this stuff. I'll flick through those in a second and show you those, and then I'll put them in at the end as well. I don't want to take too long on this because most of these are just targets to look at again in the future if we get close-ups. And also a lot of these things I've already shown in previous videos where we've had better images of them before. Some of the statues and things lower down we've already seen in good close-up. But some of these things look cool in these images because the lighting's good, and the angles of the actual shadows are highlighting the shapes and structures quite well, like here. Now, this doesn't look much until you enhance it. I'll show you the enhancement in a minute. This just looks like a bunch of like mounds, okay? But if you look carefully, this mound comes up and then down here, and then we've got structures on this kind of platform here. which is built into the side of it, and a structure on the end here. And there's also a platform on top of this mound with like a wall going along the edge. Okay, I'll show you that as well in a sec. So there's loads of structures up in the background here. If you scan the background, you can not only see these large butte-like structures here, which I think are actual buildings, like very much like the ones we see in Gale Crater, and you've got parts of them sticking out like this and here. But if you go right up to the background, miles away here, we've got groups of structures in the distance, which don't look much, but you can make out probably structures in rows on the side of this ridge at the background here. Okay, this was a nice one here. Now we've seen this before, but this is a nice close-up of it here, nice and clear. We've got this another butte sticking out here. Then we have these rather strange looking blocks on the end, which are very interesting. Here, this one looks weird. Some of these may be actual sculptures or just parts of a building, the top part of a building here. This looks like a structure that's collapsed and buried. And in the background there's also another weird mound with what looks like a structure on it as well. But you need to really darken that up to see it because it's a long way off. Just here, you can see a kind of rectangular, squarish part there, like a right angle, and another one sticking up. A bit vague, there's also one here as well, rectangle there. So if you see rectangles grouped together sticking up out of a mound or next to a mound or on a mound, then it may well be that they are structures, and I have shown many of these before, similar ones to these, in this area before, okay? But depending on which day it is and what angle the sun was when the pictures were taken and how good the shadows are, you can see some of them better on different days depending on what time of day the photographs were taken. Now we've seen this before. This was the statue thing in the distance with a helmet, which I showed weeks and weeks ago. And this is a different angle of it, and we can see that thing that looks like a chain hanging off the side here. Okay, it looks like a chain here coming down, and I think some people did point that out, and I thought, yeah, it does, it really does. Okay, and it looks like a helmet or something. Now I still think this is a statue, but we're seeing it from the side and not from the sort of front angle that we saw it from before. But it looks a bit different. And there's some very weird stuff going on here, but it still looks like a helmet. It may not, like I said, it may not be a statue. It may be a mooring or a part of a building or something. It's very odd. And when you look at it in negative, it's really quite odd indeed, this part here. But I still think this is a damaged statue or something similar in size. It's quite large. This is about 6 feet or something like that, maybe 8 tall. And I think it goes right down into the ground, right down to here somewhere. And it may be on the building or on a stand or on a plinth or something like that. Very odd. But from this angle, it looks really, really strange, especially in negative. There's some interesting stuff going on there. Here's the bunker-shaped structure, a really nice clip of it here. I've enhanced the colour and shadows on this. I've added contrast and colour corrected it. But that looks really cool in negative as well. You can really see how artificial some of this stuff looks when you flip it to negative. These long straight parts here. So I still think this is probably artificial, this giant bunker-shaped structure. I haven't had any evidence to suggest otherwise yet. But I'm willing to be proved wrong on that. That's absolutely fine. I have shown that there are statues here. There's one here. And there are skulls and carvings and stuff along here as well, which I've shown in previous videos, so I'm not going to go on about that too much. The main things were these structures in the background, and this is that weird one on the butte, which looks like a roof part, like a gable end of a roof here. Right, here's the enhanced image. All you got to do is add contrast and a bit of colour correction. It's really easy, as I've shown in loads of videos. There's the negative. Why would there be an angular part sticking out of a perfectly straight butte like this? It's really, really strange. There was this mound here with what looked like carvings or blocks on the end of it here. This was a really nice kind of view, this one. There's the enhanced one. You can see them really clearly here. This one's got like a round part on the end of it, which is really odd. And then the negative really shows them up nicely. You can really see those shapes sticking out. But there's some weird stuff going on behind it as well. And I'm sure some of these mounds and things in the background are probably actual ruins. Up here, you can see kind of rectangles and stuff going on in this stuff and things sticking up. So we've got mounds with structures and stuff all over the place in the background. And some of them aren't obvious until you flip it to negative and do a sort of enhancement of it. But here is that one I'm calling the Alamo, which looks really vague in the raw picture here. It's completely raw, this one. You can see it just there. Once you know it's there, you can see the platform, a nice straight platform, which is quite dark, and then a sort of irregular but rectangular structure sticking up. And when you see it enhanced, it makes a lot more sense. There it is. So this is ruined. This reminds me of some of the ruins I saw in Tunisia and in Turkey. Some of the old sort of fortresses and stuff up on the hill. And it looks like a building here with a roof sticking up there. You can see this dark bit, which looks like the edge of the roof, and then the top of the roof sticking up. We've got a straight wall sticking up here, and then it comes round like this, and here's the platform. This helps also if you flip it to negative and invert it, like I've done here. You can actually see the outline of it more there, and you can actually see that there are parts to it in front, like arches or smaller building, like maybe an entrance or something there, I don't know. You can see that platform going right across, and there's that building on the end here, right? This dark one here, that's a structure. What we're looking for are general shapes and right angles and rectangles and that kind of thing. There's the platform. Come straight across. We have a roof here. Main wall here. Top of the structure coming like this. It looks like it's fallen down slightly. There are some details here. I think it probably comes to here, right? But it may go right along here. This could be a wall coming right along the back here. But we have details in front as well, here, with what looks like another building or something there, or perhaps part of an outer wall or something. But this kind of looks ruined, because we've got these kind of jagged details on top. It looks a bit like a kind of ruined castle or fortress or large building that's kind of fallen down and has been damaged. But we've got this kind of platform in front, but with some other details like steps and a possible wall going back here with castling or something on it, going back up into the distance. Very similar to some of the ruins you see almost anywhere in the world, you know, whether it's North Africa or Europe or whatever. That's what it looks like. And it's unfortunate it's so far away, because if this was even only half a mile closer, we would see this in much better detail. Or if the rover actually zoomed the camera right into it, we would see it in much better detail. That would do the job. So there we are. It's not very clear, it's a long way off, but it's there. We got these rather innocent looking mounds until you enhance them or flip them to negative. Now, you can just about make them out. We've got this kind of platform here and another one on top of this one. But you can make out these structures sticking out. And then we've got this light part, which is a kind of platform there. And we've got another kind of weird like wall on here. But this looks much better in negative, like a lot of these things do. You can actually see that structure now. And you can see that there's another part to it there. So this looks like another ruin on the edge of this mound. And there's also in the background up here, you can see one up here and more up here, which look very much like structures in the background. And these, I think, correspond to some of the structures that I've shown from the satellite images. And going back as far, well, months back even, some of the satellite images I showed these ridge lines in the background and the edge of the crater with all these kind of town and city-like areas, okay? With multiple buildings and formations of buildings and ruins up on the mountain. And I think this is it. This is some of it. So this is basically some of the detail I've shown you before from space. We're now seeing it from the ground, which means it's probably real. You can see it from both hundreds of miles up and from just a couple of miles away on the ground, and it's probably real and it's probably there. because that verifies what I've shown before. So check out the things in the background. This is where all the interesting stuff is in these images. Most of it is up here in the background. You can see all these structures up on the hill, and a lot of these I've shown before, but like I said, depending on what time of day these are taken, we get different shadows and different effects lighting up these distant ruins on the edge of Jezero crater on Mars. Okay, so thanks for watching, everybody. Clips coming up now.